All right, and we are live. Welcome to. Well, I think the numbering is getting a little off because I didn't quite see that there was another Film Geek Primer. But by my reckoning, it's episode 25 of Film Geek Primer Live. Uh, Things are getting a little slimmer. Although we have a viewer. We have a viewer, ladies and gentlemen. That's very, very exciting for the both of us involved. I wish Santa were alive to see this. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He's fine. He's fine. Yeah, we've got some not so pleasant news to discuss this week. I'm sure both of you watching have heard about Robin Williams and Lauren Bacall. One is a tragedy. One is just sad with the passing of time. But with me, not as always, but with me is Warren. Mostly with me is Warren.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So we were talking a little bit before the show about some of our Robin Williams memories. I think we're going to table that for later in the show. Hopefully, more people will join us. But first, let's do just a little catch up. I haven't been watching much. Last few days before school, we've been getting a lot of video game time in with the boys. Made some real good progress in Ratchet and Clank. Those of you that follow me on Facebook will see the trophy updates, and I swear to God, most of those are my kids. I don't really play.
Yeah, I figured as much. I figured it's like he's playing a lot of Marvel Avengers these days.
At noon.
Yeah, I thought he was working. I didn't realize he was unemployed playing video games.
Well, that's actually the saddest part is when I look at my own feed and I see that I unlocked something and I'm like, oh, I wish I was home playing that game.
Can't wait till the kids go to school and they don't have fun anymore.
Right. And just a little bit of. Do I have a? Oh, hold on, someone's here. Oh yeah, Shu is there. I'm gonna send him another invite. But just a little bit of housekeeping here. You know, we've talked among the geeks here about being able to discuss a particular film that is streaming and that is available to us all, so that we can discuss it and then hopefully have our audience, which currently consists of one. Though if I had to guess, I would guess that one is Shu, and that watching our show is how he knows it started. So welcome, Shu. Once you join in, I expect one viewer to disappear.
I'm sure he was talking to the screen. There he is.
So, Shu, were you watching us? Were you our viewer?
No.
All right, mystery viewer, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, mystery viewer, some big-time viewy person of big-time viewiness.
Well, considering we normally get 0, having 1 really puts us up by an infinity %.
It certainly does.
If my math is correct.
Hold on, let me check your math. Yes, that is math.
Let's double check that with today's modern calculators. But yeah, just back to the housekeeping I wanted to do. I was hoping another member would be texting me. We are going to be talking about the Dogs of War, I believe, this Friday. Shu, have you started watching that, or have you already seen it?
I have seen it, yes.
Okay.
Because I'm a loser like Santo as well. I think it's a follically challenged thing, and so after he had mentioned that he was viewing it on a Friday after our socially inept Friday chat, I watched it later that evening and got it in at that point. So it'll be an entire week from now when I'll have to recall it. But if I'm around on Friday, I'll probably blab about something and be able to chime in.
So you hadn't seen it since Friday. So Friday was your first viewing ever.
No, not ever. I remember seeing it, but the movie's 30 years old, and it had probably been 20 at least since I had seen it.
I don't remember ever seeing it. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I started watching it, and it's certainly interesting. I'm very excited to see how it goes. It is not what I was expecting by far. Well, no, it's pretty close. It's still not what I was expecting.
Exactly what I was expecting.
Well, sometimes you see something and it's like right down the middle. It's like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted.
That's pretty much what I anticipated. But yeah, I think there's probably some interesting points to break down, and I don't know after that who's next in line and what movie we're watching after that. But certainly if you guys know who's on deck and what movie we're supposed to take in after that, then I can certainly get a jump on that as well.
Yeah.
I think John said something like, we'll announce it Friday or something like that.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
So yeah, so all of you viewer, make sure you catch up on that movie before Friday rolls around so that you can not have it spoiled and understand the references we're making. It's very refreshing right out of the gate, and we'll certainly get into it more on Friday, but just to see Christopher Walken acting again instead of just caricaturing.
I think with us and all our viewer...
What?
I think with us and all our viewer watching it, streaming it on Netflix, we might crash Netflix.
Right.
With all of us.
Right. I hope they've upped their server farm.
Because I think
growing plenty of servers down there on the server farm.
Exactly.
So there was something else I wanted to mention in terms of housekeeping. Oh, yeah, we need to figure out a numbering system. I need to talk to Santo about this because I don't believe he published your episode, and he named it episode 25, and I had already named this one episode 25. So we're gonna have to work some things out. It'll probably, if I had to guess, it would probably be a knife fight to the death in Thunderdome in order to settle this.
I was
2 episodes end or 1 episode leaves. Yeah.
I was thinking that, or if you wanted to call it Friday Night Losers, you know, that's a title that probably is fairly accurate as well.
Friday Night Light Weights.
Way off in the distance for us.
Yeah. Eyes clear.
As we hang out in a video chat on a Friday night.
Right.
That's better than what I normally do on a Friday night.
Okay, yeah, the only difference is I'm not paying you guys by the minute. So, just real quick, Shu, have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy yet?
I have not.
I would like to take this opportunity, since I have not had the chance to talk about it with Warren, to just enter into a little bit of a love fest.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, no, that's not a problem. Don't worry about spoiling anything. What I've heard up and share whatever you like. What I've heard so far up to this point is nothing but good things.
Yeah, I'll try not to spoil any plot specifics.
Don't worry about it. It's a show with spoilers. That's part of the way it works. I happen to be here. Share whatever you want. Whatever comes out is fine.
All right, I'll still try to tiptoe. But so Warren,
Yes.
What did you think?
Oh, I loved it. I had a great time. I've actually seen it twice. I saw it the Thursday night that it opened. You know, it opened on Friday, but they always show that they seem to creep more into Thursday now with like big movie releases.
Yeah, that money counts towards the weekend, so they
yeah, for sure. Like Wednesday counts. It's a Wednesday weekend, you know, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned. So I saw it that night, and then I came back, and Austin wanted to see it. He was like, "Oh, you saw it? I want to see it really bad." And so we went and saw it Sunday afternoon matinee, and he loved it. And you know, it was actually better the second time. It's just a really fun movie. You know, I mean, yeah, if you sit down and start thinking about it way too much, you could be like, "Well, wait, what about that?" But you
Sure.
don't want to sit down and think about that. I mean, it's just a fun ride. Is kind of like the best way you can explain it. And there hasn't been a movie like that where it's just plain fun to watch, and it's a good time, and it's not stupid at all. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you're not kind of like oh well, or just suspend your suspension of disbelief type of thing kind of going on. You just have a good time with it. It's fun. That's all I keep saying about it.
Yeah, it certainly was. And the thing I think that surprised me most about the movie, and it was just the most delightful surprise, was that it was a comedy.
Yeah.
Like this movie is, 50 to 60% a comedy, and not only that, but the comedy works. I was laughing so hard at so many of the bits that they were doing. Everything this movie tried, it reminded me, in a lot of ways, it reminded me of Up, in the sense that everything this movie tried to do, for me anyway, it completely succeeded at.
Mm-hmm.
All of the emotional stuff totally landed. All of the humor totally landed. All of the action was tense. Even things like the raccoon character is supposed to be really smart, so he has this plan at one point, fairly early in the movie, and it was a pretty smart plan.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yes, okay, I'm sold. You had to set this up as a smart plan, and it didn't have to be smart just because everyone else around him was dumb. Like it was legitimately smart, and yeah, I keep coming back to the humor. There was so much good humor, And so the humor worked, the action worked, the character stuff worked. These characters were given very little in some cases. You know, Drax was given very little. The raccoon was given very little. You know, Groot only says 4 words, I guess, and you bought into it. Like, you were completely emotionally invested in all of these characters. I was just shocked. I was expecting to enjoy it, because even sort of at this point for me, the worst Marvel movies are still fairly enjoyable. Like, Thor 2 was kind of difficult, but I still enjoyed it. You know, it still had that sense of fun that Warren's describing, but I think this one sort of took it all to a whole new level. And I do give a lot of credit, almost all of the credit, to James Gunn, who walked an incredibly fine line with this movie, where it could have been just an unmitigated disaster, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. There are huge plot problems in it.
And there was tons of things in it that really should not have worked.
Yes.
There were things in it where you're just like maybe taken by themselves, separately, taken out, you go, if somebody said, here, this is in this movie, you'd go, well, that's not going to work. Like, that's going to be dumb. That's going to look stupid. But it worked. You know, it worked all in the context. And, like, when those things happened, that it's like, you know, like, I'll just say, like, dancing.
Yes, right?
None of that dancing should have worked, and yet it fit in perfectly. And I was just like
hilarious.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was like, wow. And I don't know if you got this. I picked up when I'm watching it the second time, I was like, this is like a Shane Black movie.
Yes.
The dialogue, the rapid fire dialogue, and just like the conversations we're having, it was Shane Black. Like, that's all it was.
Yeah, it's certainly it had his patter, it had his back and forth, but just going back to that point that I really thought everything really worked in it. It's kind of the opening scene, and I don't want to give too much away, but it comes out of the gate strongly emotional and real human character-based emotion. You don't have to fake anything. It was a very real moment, and a seriously bold choice to say that, hey, my fanciful space battle movie that, you know, has, you know, people with names, again, like Groot and Drax, is going to start with this really intensely human experience, which I thought really grounded the movie. You're with this guy, this kid, from the beginning. The casting was brilliant, because Pratt is just a charm missile. It was yeah. I always remember Bob, or if you remember Bob Feast, used to describe Kevin Kline as an entertainment cruise missile. I feel like Chris Pratt is taking that position. But
new man crush on Chris Pratt.
I totally do. Unapologetically. I think there's worse men I could have crushes on. Cut to Warren. All right, cut back. I was going to cut to Shu, but I don't know you that well yet.
What, you know Chris Pratt well?
A little better than you.
Biblical sense.
All of a sudden, this show got really interesting.
Hello.
But so the final thing I'll say, so I thought it was brilliant for them to root it in human emotion out of the gate, and then I thought it was brilliant of them to root it in Earth culture as much as they did with the 70s soundtrack, which was an inspired idea, I think, to keep people from being just too put off by the things they're seeing on the screen.
Well, they needed to do that because they didn't have that character that the audience can directly relate to, where everybody's explaining things to that character. You know, a lot of movies have that, especially in space or alien movies, where it's like, wait, what's going on? You know, oh, you're from Earth. Like, at this point, it pretty much starts off, he's lived in that world most of his life. So nothing is ever being explained to him at all. You know, so nothing's being explained to the audience. So that's why, you know, the soundtrack is like this 70s music that kind of keeps the audience in it that you can relate to. You know, he's still from Earth with all the Earth mannerisms, and he's using them in an alien world that doesn't understand them. If anything, it's reversed.
And it's dated.
Yeah.
Like, he has nothing after 84 or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that, you know, he pulled off what could have been what could have been a horrible, horrible movie. He, turned it into a really fantastic movie.
Yeah, and I give him a lot of credit because he certainly was the one manning the camera. I mean, he got the director credit, but I also have to wonder how much of it is. And I've heard his name pronounced differently now. Kevin Feige.
I've heard Feige and Feige.
Yeah, whoever's that puppet master at Marvel, I hear he's the main driving force behind these movies, and that the directors, he doesn't want auteurs, and that's what drove Edgar Wright away from Ant-Man, apparently. But this movie was no easy task. Not that any of these Marvel movies are easy, but I would say that some of them are a little easier than others. I think like an Iron Man origin story is certainly easier than the story of 5 friends who meet out in the far reaches of a distant galaxy.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's and just a little backstory. Back in MySpace days, when we all had MySpace pages, I read this article about writing in Hollywood. It was written by James Gunn, because he was more of a writer, 7 or 8 years ago. He had directed some stuff. And I started following him on MySpace, and I even wrote him a couple of times about some things that I had done, and he responded. He was really like back and forth. We would communicate with a few emails here and there and notes, and so I've kind of followed him throughout his career. He's done a lot of indie movies and stuff like that. So I sort of followed. When I heard about Guardians of the Galaxy like 2 years ago, I was like, oh, well, there's a movie we don't need. And when I heard it was James Gunn, I was like, oh man, I really hope it doesn't ruin his career. Like I was like kind of hoping. But what I heard was that when he wrote the script, he turned in a first draft, and Joss Whedon, who is sort of now like lords over a lot of these Marvel movies and kind of is sort of like one of the creative directors, said, that's good and that's really true to the comics, but make it more James Gunn. Like it needs to be more crazy James Gunn. Because have you ever seen like his movies Super or Slither? I mean, they're kind of crazy movies. Mm-hmm. He started off in the Troma world where he directed Romeo and Juliet and stuff like that. So he's kind of like,
right. That's right.
His stuff is really sort of out there, but he said he made this movie like to be more family, like that was his goal, to be more like to a wider audience. And I think that he went back and made it more James Gunn. I think that's why they said, you know what, this is a kind of a crazy universe. It could be more crazy. People don't know these comics for the most part, unless you're a diehard comic fan.
Well, it definitely worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I keep getting back to the humor. There were just so many great lines, so many great, not just one-liners, which is I don't want to say it's an easier thing, but it's a simpler thing to toss off either a meta reference or some sort of self-aware gag in one of these movies. But back and forth bits, jokes that extended for 2 full minutes of patter and banter. Not necessarily callbacks even, but character traits that were established and then used later on as fodder for humor. Just I don't want to give too much away, and I've heard it. It's funny. I've heard it compared to Star Wars, sometimes in like a derivative way or like in a derogatory way. But I think the way it compares to a movie like Star Wars is it's actually something my wife said when we walked out, where she's like, how often are you introduced to an entire new universe and an entire new cast of characters like this, where they're all that entertaining and that enjoyable and that likable? And I think the sort of scoundrel character that Star-Lord is very Han Solo-y. It's got a little Harrison Ford vibe, only almost more adorable, if that's possible. All right. We love that movie. I love that movie. I'm hereby declaring it good. It is official. All right, so that's what we've seen, some of us twice. How about you, Shu? We're cutting to you now. What have you seen recently?
Boy, did I see a gem earlier today. I have a friend who's a big fan of the 60s, 70s, and 80s miniseries phenomena. And so today I got to endure a movie called Hawaii. Hawaii.
On the James Michener novel?
The James Michener novel. Uh-huh.
Is that okay? First of all, is that 2 weeks in a row that we've dropped the Michener on?
I think Michener and Woke. Yes. Uh-huh. 2 shows in a row. So we're setting the bar at quite a level. I'm not sure Michener and Woke have been mentioned in consistency on anything else on YouTube with as much regularity as they happen to be mentioned in this Google Hangout at FGP.
Yeah, not even on their own YouTube videos.
I searched them on Google and only 2.
I'm not even sure Michener and Woke were ever mentioned on MySpace.
Nope.
Okay, so yes, it's based on the Michener novel, and I don't know how much of the Michener novel you're familiar with, since I don't read. I'm not familiar with it at all.
I'm familiar with the title.
Okay, there you go. Which is a surprise. You could have probably guessed based on the title. Oh, hey, either it's a surf movie or it's something that Michener did. I could have said Arkansas. You could have said, oh, the Michener novel.
Oh, the James Michener novel.
You might have had a decent chance of nailing that one. So apparently it's 3 hours and 10 minutes long. Okay, it was made in 1966. It has a pretty good cast, as many series do. This cast included Julie Andrews, Max von Sydow, Gene Hackman. This is Gene Hackman in 1966. Carol O'Connor, who has a very brief part in it and is cast so curiously based on the way that you ultimately get to know him through the Archie Bunker character, that he seems a tad out of place, and a number of fairly legitimate Hawaiian actors as well. So basically the gist of it is to shorten 3 hours and 10 minutes. Whitey
put up in a tweet for me.
Yes, Whitey is evil. Christianity in its missionary form is bad. Okay, there's your film. However,
I'm not following.
Yeah, whoa, slow down.
All right, okay.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
I'll let that one resonate and sink in a little bit. I know it's an unusual concept.
Aren't you talking about Diamond Head?
Isn't that the Charlton Heston movie?
Yeah, that was the. Yes, I have an old joke with Diamond Head where.
Please share it.
One of my and the best part is I promise you it's not funny.
So, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's been built up so well. I can't wait for the punchline.
Oh, it's so good. When I was just a young film geek in high school, and there was a fancy technology known as laser discs. You could often, very shortly after laser discs were invented, you could find bargain bins of them very quickly. And one of my friends bought the other, whatever disc he found at the top of the bargain bin laser disc tub that you would find at, I believe, the Good Guys back then. It may have also been Circuit City, and this particular Laserdisc was Diamond Head, starring Charlton Heston. So we all started saying Diamond Head in our best Charlton Heston accents, and it's a very, Diamond Head. Let's just go around the room. Warren, give me your best Charlton Heston Diamond Head.
Diamond Head.
That's good. It's satisfying. Shu, let's hear it.
I'm so totally new to the game. Damn it! Diamond Head.
That's good. That's sort of a younger Charlton Heston, but that's good. So,
sorry. I didn't want to go for older Charlton Heston. That was the Charlton Heston who probably should have starred in Hawaii because he was a white dude who destroyed the original culture.
He did star in it. It was called Diamond Head.
Oh, that's right.
It was Hawaii 2, Diamond Head.
Hawaii 2.
That was the original title.
So apparently,
we sit down and watch this laser disc, and.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's more to the joke.
Oh, that wasn't just the setup.
Good.
Oh, yeah. No. It gets more anticlimactic. You thought that was it, but it actually you thought it didn't end there.
No, I have been laughing so far though. So this is good.
So as we watched it, every time it cut to Charlton Heston or there was a pause in the dialogue, one of us in the room would go, "Diamond Head." Which happens frequently in the film. So I don't know if you saw it, but the general plot is white people bad. And then it's been a while since I've seen it. I can't remember exactly what the other parts of the plot are. But Charlton Heston has a character turn where he goes from you're not dating one of those damn natives to I am happy for you to be dating one of those damn natives. And he does it by riding his horse atop a very famous mountain. You may know it.
In Hawaii?
It's a mountain in Hawaii. He rides up to the top. Long story short, we get through the entire movie without a single person in the film saying the word Diamond Head.
No way.
Yeah, it was
fantastic.
It was not only, I mean, it was as anticlimactic as this joke. Now, postscript to the joke, we were very drunk and high when we were watching this movie. And I'm not going to lie, the reality is Diamond Head might have been said several times in the film.
Right. Well,
we just missed it.
Admittedly, I kind of like your revisionist version of this.
Yeah, I'm not one to cling to my own internal mythology. Like, I know this happened and it was hilarious, but
this is
I'm not
possibly
100%
the greatest.
sure it happened the way I remember.
This is possibly the greatest review of. I don't know that my review of Hawaii was very good, but it's possibly the greatest review of Diamond Head in the history of this world. Certainly in the history of Google Hangouts. So I'm very impressed with that.
For all those people searching Diamond Head, it's gonna pop up. Oh, you better.
You put this in the meta tag.
You completely know that within 2 or 3 months, this is going to be its own drinking game. In Colorado, Washington, and certain points, pretty much all of California, this is going to be your own get high game too. But somehow this thing is going to spread, get out of control. Everybody's going to watch Diamond Head on Laserdisc because they're going to find it in the top of a bin. People are going to rummage around in used record stores and video stores. Yes, they still have a few of those. They're going to find a Diamond Head disc. They're going to put it at the top of the group. Somebody else is going to come to that box, grab Diamond Head, pay about $1 for it, or if the record store is smarter, jack up the price, and they'll still pay much more for it. They're going to put it in their Laserdisc player because everybody has a Laserdisc player, and if not, they're going to get it off
Laserdisc player.
And then we're all going to go to Warren's house. We're going to get high. We're going to drink, and we're going to say Diamond Head when there's a downturn in dialogue.
Hold on. You do not have a Laserdisc player, Warren.
I do. I still have my Laserdisc player.
You do not have a Laserdisc player. I refuse. You never had a Laserdisc player. I've literally known you my entire life, and you have never had a Laserdisc player.
You have been to my house and seen where the Laserdisc player is.
Including Diamond Head. And watch Diamond Head at Warren's place.
I have a box of Laserdiscs.
Call Todd. Call Todd. Todd
me.
still has Diamond Head on Laserdisc. I refuse to believe he parted with that.
Oh, I should ask Todd if I can borrow Diamond Head. I should email him. Hey, Todd, can I borrow Diamond Head on Laserdisc?
And he'll say, sorry, I traded it to a record store and asked them to put it at the top of the box.
I sold it to a fraternity for $50.
No, his response will be, as soon as I'm done watching it. All right. Okay, so some assignments this week I'm going to hand out here. So first of all, Shu, you got to watch Diamond Head.
Apparently I do.
And you because I know you're 4 weeks sober now. I know you will keep an eye out and an ear open for the phrase Diamond Head.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. As an aside, is it 3 hours long?
Oh no, it's way less than 3 hours long.
Oh, fantastic! Good. Whew.
Yeah, it's way less. It's like
I'm not sure how much of evil. I'm not sure how much of evil Whitey
it's 259 tops.
Oh, good. That's way shorter. No problem.
And Warren, you have an assignment as well. I need you to tweet out a picture of your Laserdisc player.
I will. All
right. The next selfie I see better have a Laserdisc player in the background. Now, the final point I have to make, and this is for Santo, who can't be here tonight. Diamond Head may not work. A Laserdisc from the late 80s, early 90s may not work today because of something Santo claims exists, which is called laser rot. I believe he made that up, and that it is a bullshit term. He claims it is a real thing, and with all his fancy knowledge and book learning, he says that the facts back him up. Well, I have not had the time in my life to Google that 9-letter word laser rot. I just don't have the time.
Didn't they have that in Guardians of the Galaxy?
I'm a very busy man. So yeah, laser rot was a villain in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Laser rot the accuser.
So just in honor of Santo, I have to bring up that some say this is a murky area where science and mythology sort of intersect. Some say there is a thing called laser rot, and that no laser disc of Diamond Head may be playable today.
I suspect it's a Santo sock puppet Gmail account.
I had heard that.
Yeah, you heard it from Santo.
No. No. Something different. In the early 90s, like when when I had like CDs, and somebody said, eventually CDs wear out, like whatever the coating wears out. Now I found some old CDs that I had from like 1990, like some Zeppelin CDs and stuff, and they still play. They still play fine. So,
well, I think that this is one of those things that we will never get to the bottom to, because A, technology and records from that era are spotty at best, and B, I will never accept being disproven. So it's going to be a...
C, do you think laser rot has a half-life?
Well, it only makes sense because I have Half-Life.
Well, there you are.
I have Half-Life too.
Hey, I like that. I enjoyed that. Yeah. That's not as funny as Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, but it was pretty good.
It's not bad.
Also, I so apologize for stuffing all those records in what I clearly know is now your Laserdisc player. I hope that didn't cause any problems.
No, I think it's fine.
That would be my bad. Okay. Is that enough fun? Should we talk about some sad stuff? No? Yeah? Silence? Cut to Shu. Cut to Warren. Cut to Aaron. Back to Shu. Back to Aaron. Warren. All right, so we've lost a couple of legends early this week. Robin Williams, of course, passed away. That one is a real tragedy. He was relatively young, 62. I think there were several more excellent performances in him that we were just waiting to see. He continued to work, and while his comedy stuff may not have hit as frequently, I think he remained an incredibly powerful dramatic actor, even in movies that weren't fantastic. I'm thinking of 1 Hour Photo specifically, and
yeah, he was creepy in that. I mean, he was really, really creepy.
Yeah, he was a very effective, unbalanced person. And you believed it whether it was in the service of comedy, and you believed it whether it was in the service of humor. Whether it was in the service of drama. But you always felt that there was something off. I don't know what more we can add to everything you can find on social media, but I saw... the problem with scrolling through Twitter is that you sort of lose attribution. You don't know if something's going to stick with you until you've scrolled past it, and then you can never find it again. And someone said that when you first get into Robin Williams, you realize he's hilarious, and then as you go on, you realize all his characters are about keeping madness at bay. That there's a real struggle there's a through line in a lot of his characters where they struggle with the same madness that animates their positive qualities. And I was thinking about that, and that really rang true with a lot of his, really memorable performances. For me, it's and we can just go around talking about our favorite Robin Williams movies. For me, it's The Fisher King, kind of hands down. He was in several great films for sure, but the impact I had on the Fisher King. Oh. What? I just received. I'm sorry. I don't mean to shift gears, but I just received a very important instant message. I'm going to have to screen share some very vital information. Let's see, share that screen. What you see is a Wikipedia article sent to me for something that is called disc rot. Now, I think we can see an image here. There it is. That looks to me like a CD,
What?
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is a phrase describing the tendency of CD or DVD or other optical discs to become unreadable due to physical or chemical deterioration. Let's see. A quick review of this page shows that it was edited 27 seconds ago by a Jay Santo. Right, that is enough of that. I think we've heard just fast. I think we've heard just about enough from Mr. Internet. By the way, we had 2 viewers for like 7 minutes, and I think I know who it was, and I think I know which 7 minutes he watched. So okay, so back on our morbid track. Yeah, the Fisher King, I think, encapsulates a lot of that. There's the humor, there's the improv, there's the silly, but really it's all about a character trying to keep the madness at bay. Let's go to Warren. Let's talk about some of your Robin Williams connections.
You know, Robin Williams connections. I remember, because, you know, growing up in Marin and being around, he was like the local, he was the guy. He was like, he would, you know, people would see him. And I remember back in, when did Hamlet come out? The Kenneth Branagh movie.
Oh, yeah, 88? No,
it was later than that. It was like in the early 90s, I think.
Maybe 91? You keep talking, I'll find out.
So anyway, I remember Kevin had passes to go. They were showing it at the Roland, the Regency here. They were doing something for the Marin Film Institute, and they're having a special showing. And Kenneth Branagh was going to be there and speak before the movie, and it was like a 4.5 hour movie. So there was an intermission, and Robin Williams was there because he's in the movie. He and Billy Crystal play like two of the guards or something. You know, they just have like a little 1 scene or 2 scene bit, and it's like them just doing it back and forth. But he was there. And I remember I was walking out with Kevin, and we were kind of talking about it, and we were walking out of the theater, and I kind of walked out the door to go outside during the intermission, and I'm like holding the door because I know there's people behind me. I look back, and it's Robin Williams behind me. And I was like, oh, shit, that's Robin Williams. I was like, that's great. And I was like, really cool. But what struck me kind of almost instantly is that he was clearly trying not to be seen, and he was clear, like, you know, his shoulders were kind of in. He was very kind of introverted. He was very just trying to be hidden, and sort of like, I was like, oh, here you go, and he thanked me, but it was somebody who was clearly just, he wasn't the Robin Williams that we all know and we see on the screen or we see on interviews or whatever. Like, he was very much, he just looked like a very small man trying to just kind of like not be, you know, just not be a part of what was going on around him. And that image always stuck with me. Like, I always kind of thought that about him. That he was just this, like, it was
it's
just
interesting how you can come through, you know, you get that one brief experience and it sticks with you in that regard. You know, there was a comment by someone who had worked with him and said, I've worked with him for 35 years and don't know the man because around me he was always on. So it was an entirely different perception that 2 different people had, one who had many more experiences, but one who was very brief. And you know, I think to a large degree, both of them are probably very understandable.
Yeah, no, that's what, because I've read that a lot of that is that. Well, first I heard one guy on NPR said, who knew him, said she asked him, like, did you know or have any inclination about how his sickness, his depression, and he said, you know, I think everybody unknowingly knew that anybody who acts that sort of manic in that way is sort of doing it as a way of covering up something.
Coping.
And there was another person that said, who was a friend of his and had been, you know, like in social situation, went to a potluck, went to dinners with him and stuff like that, and said, you know, if it was just you and him in an elevator, he wouldn't say a word and he'd be very quiet and he'd be very just within himself. But if there was 2 people around, he'd be entertaining. You know, if he had an audience, he would entertain. You know,
Right.
if it was just one-on-one, you know, it was hardly a conversation.
So what's your favorite movie of his?
Um, Favorite movie? You know, it could be either, you know, Moscow on the Hudson, maybe. I
Really?
thought he was great. That's a great movie. Or, you know, I'll even go with Popeye because he was so just Popeye. I think Popeye is great. It's a weird movie, but it's, I don't know.
That's an
It's
interesting
not the
call.
time for this, but you are wrong.
How come you hate Robin Williams?
Popeye is so weird.
Exactly. But you know what? That's, you know, a lot of people say the Fisher King is too weird, you know?
Yeah, those people are wrong too.
That's-
Sorry.
Although, admittedly, based on things that I've heard, those are two movies. And Aaron, I'm kind of in your camp. Fisher King's the one that first came into my mind. And I was fascinated, you know, that a lot of other folks have rightfully mentioned, depending on your age group, too, there's a little bit of
Yes.
difference in how you remember Robin Williams. If you're much younger, you remember him from Aladdin.
Yep.
And Aladdin's been mentioned a lot. Mrs. Doubtfire has naturally been mentioned a lot. Dead Poet Society, Good Morning Vietnam. Those seem to be the ones that have been more regularly mentioned, and it kind of surprised me that Fisher King wasn't one that popped up on that immediately on that list, or at least was in that top rung of those movies that were referenced as works of his, and that was always one that I think popped into my head as well. So I'd be in your camp in that regard. I think the Popeye one's a really interesting one too, because that movie was so universally panned and is sometimes difficult to get through. But I know a surprising amount of people who really like that film, and oddly enough, there are even people with opinions I occasionally respect. So that one working its way into that's a very unique take, and probably, you know, they all have something to do with his, you know, ability to get across what it was he was asked to do, and how he went through the process. It's, you know, again, if you get back to the age thing. Now, I know you wanted to be specifically in the movie category as well, based on the show. I can understand that too. I remember Williams not even so much from a Mork and Mindy capacity, which I remember very well and watched regularly.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I remember him as the guest who dominated variety shows, talk shows, who completely, when he was on screen, completely took over and would often be on for an entire hour. Johnny, there are some, if you can find them, there are some classic Robin Williams ad-lib impromptu moments on some of the great Johnny Carson shows, where Carson has nothing to say and is smart enough to just let him go.
Right.
And it's the brand of I think there really wasn't much like it prior to the specific way that Williams was bringing it across up to that point. I think what eventually may have happened, and what happens with everybody, certainly in the comic realm, is that regardless of who you are and what you do, the shtick runs its course. And if you watch Robin Williams in later guest appearances on talk shows trying to do the same thing, it may have been equally effective, but now it was 35 years old and you had seen it now for 3 decades. And so it didn't feel as fresh and it didn't come across as unique, and it sort of almost got in the way of, it became, instead of this guy is hilarious, it became, it's Robin Williams doing his old shtick again. And that's kind of disappointing throughout the course of the process, but I think that, unfortunately, is the nature of comedy. And, you know, I think there's a lot to be said about the cliche that gets reiterated on a regular basis that comedy, and you guys touched on it a little bit, comedy is a defense mechanism. It's why many comedians, and many of the great comedians, endure significant bouts with depression and have to fight that sort of thing all the way through. As a result of that, they've been able to hone that to make a lot of us laugh in the process, but they remain miserable all the way to the end. It's sad clown. It's the irony of sad clown syndrome, and it seems now apparent that Robin Williams was enduring that for the majority of his adult and acting life.
Well, you touched on the way you use the word dominated, and that's exactly right. I've seen some of those clips. The culture wasn't prepared for his natural talent, and then to have that natural talent, and he freely admitted this, to have that natural talent enhanced by the drug use he was doing at the time, made it an unstoppable force. The natural talent didn't go away, and you saw it in those later years. However effective or not effective it might have been, the shotgun method. You could see Robin Williams do, 150 jokes in 17 seconds, and 8 of them might be just hilarious. But that's a lot of misses, and it sort of grew old. But he was so unique in what he did and the way he did it, that it could be very easily imitated, but it'll never be replicated. Like I think there are probably some high energy comedians that could like Robin Williams, but it has already been established as a method now by him.
Right.
Well, when he came up, there were comedians who did that. I mean, like if you think around the time he was coming out, you had Bobcat Goldthwait and you had Howie Mandel. They were doing those same kind of shticks, and there was a bunch of other comedians.
Yeah, Howie Mandel was close, and Bobcat Goldthwait was a little bit different. I think he had a.
Well, I think
Bobcat Goldthwait was very different for many reasons.
Something that is manic energy, but Bobcat Goldthwait is nothing like that character. Like you still get the feeling that Robin Williams, like that comes out of him even as he's old. Like Bobcat Goldthwait doesn't do that character at all anymore.
I don't know how familiar you guys are with the last season of Mork and Mindy. That is the year where Jonathan Winters joins the cast and becomes the baby who grows old backward. Okay. Right. The interesting part, let's go with that. The interesting part of those Mork and Mindy episodes is the ending sequences. They're all Jonathan Winters ad-libs, and I think there was obviously this was obviously a Robin Williams decision. Williams had ridiculous respect for Jonathan Winters. Now, if you go back and watch a lot of those Winters ad-libs, I think you can see how Williams kind of borrowed and built from them. And even though a lot of them, I would argue most of them don't work, there was still an every now and then, and whatever it was, in Williams' ability to just come up with something impromptu at the moment and try to build a character on the fly that I think Williams, in addition to what other aspects he was trying to hone, kind of mapped a lot of his foundation around that Jonathan Winters kind of perspective and approach, and then built upon it from there. And now from this point on, whether comedians are able to build upon that or are viewed as derivative because of the Williams style, I guess that remains to be seen.
Who could do that? I mean, who could do that sort of one-man improv? When you see improv, now, it looks more like the Groundlings. It looks more like a Saturday Night Live sketch that you didn't see coming, or it veers into the more abstract. He was a one-man sort of improv show. He didn't need anyone to bounce off of. I think it was really interesting what you said about Carson. Carson was completely ill-equipped to handle a guest like that, and B, was one of Carson's great talents was that he never tried to be funny when someone else was sitting there. He was very good at making the guest funny, and those two things in combination on those bits are just so much fun to watch. Carson's talent as a host and Williams' talent as a guest.
Carson's greatest attribute, I think, was the ability to know how to handle a guest and when to lay out.
Yeah.
And just let it naturally take its course. And so, whereas you would argue that Carson was ill-equipped for what it was that Williams was doing, I think it's Carson's ability to work on the fly that actually built Williams and gave Williams an excellent platform to move what it was that he did to another level. And then from there, talent moved on from there, and he was able to move into movies and do a lot of a great variety of things as well, and be very effective in a lot of different roles.
So we've got another person to cover, but just Shu, real quick, Favorite Robin Williams movie?
I'm with you on Fisher King. I think that's a really good call.
It's so good. It's so powerful. Um,
And I think it's kind of a movie that's sort of been lost with time. It's kind of to some degree, I think it's a slip through the cracks film. But I think maybe you guys disagree on that, but it seems to be, I think there's a lot of value in checking out that movie again, and maybe it's one that'll be rediscovered for an unfortunate reason.
I think people have I think people have problems with it not because it's Robin Williams, but more Terry Gilliam. People people who love or hate his movies and
yeah, I'm actually starting to worry. It's funny, the same way you just described the Fisher King, I'm starting to worry about Gilliam as a whole. That he may be being lost to history, unfortunately. He didn't have his mega breakout big hit movie that should have bought him, The Island somewhere. He should have a movie that hits at the level of like a Marvel movie. Like he should. I feel like he's got something in him that can rule the summer. But that's a whole other.
I think you can blame Zack Snyder for that, because Zack Snyder wanted to make sure that Terry Gilliam wasn't going to ruin The Watchmen for all of us.
well, I think he might have. That's tough source material. All right, whole other conversation. The other person and one I felt a very strong connection with that passed away just today was Lauren Bacall. I think I described this to someone. The first time I fell in love with Lauren Bacall was when I saw The Big Sleep, but it certainly wasn't the last time. There were several movies she was in where she was amazing, and I always consider her the Hawks. I consider her a Hawks girl above Katharine Hepburn, and for me, I feel like she imbued her characters with a little more intelligence. That may be heresy to some Katharine Hepburn fans, but it's you're comparing goddesses at this point. But my favorite Lauren Bacall moment is when she's in Eddie Marr's casino in The Big Sleep, and she's singing that song about the abused wife while simultaneously flirting with Humphrey Bogart and sizing up the waitress that he's standing next to. It's an amazing scene. It's easily found on YouTube. It's fantastic. I don't know who else is close to Lauren Bacall.
Close to Lauren Bacall?
No.
Silence? I've never met her.
No. You ever seen
Lauren Bacall is. I mean, she's awesome. I mean, how old was she when she was like 16, wasn't she, when they met?
It's creepy. She was
somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, she was 19 and he was, I think, 50.
Yeah, she was 19.
Yeah, and that was To Have and Have Not is where they met. I think I'm almost positive about that. And it's, for me, that particular relationship is less creepy because it lasted so long.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was definitely, they were in love with each other for a very long time.
And it's also hard to fathom. Humphrey Bogart died in 1957. 1957.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a long time ago. I'm not going to do math on this show. A hell of a long time ago.
Numbers.
Careful, you're going to give your brain laser rot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she kind of commanded the screen. She was a very strong, and you said Katharine Hepburn. I mean, there's not a lot of actresses, I mean, especially nowadays, that have her kind of presence, I feel like.
Yeah, the words sexy and classy don't go together with a lot of today's actresses. It's sort of one or the other.
Yeah.
I think, anyway.
Yeah.
All right, Shu, favorite Lauren Bacall movie?
Boy, I think you guys have already done an excellent job laying down a lot. There are plenty of them out there and a lot to potentially go through and give a look to. But, you consider her role in noir as a whole, and it's, I think you could favorably argue it's every bit as vital as Bogart and any of a number of others who fall under that category and that niche. And if you like those kinds of movies, you absolutely love what she was able to do. And she was an icon and was was great at what it was that she was able to bring out. And Aaron, I think you did a nice job comparing her with Hepburn. I think a lot of people would, toss that in. If you're talking about romance and you're talking about power couples and the rest of it, Bogey and Bacall are almost part of the English language lexicon.
Yeah.
And that's when you possess a very special place and have accomplished quite a bit if you've somehow worked your way into being part of the vernacular. And that's exactly what took place here.
Yeah, the chemistry between the two of them is it's so much fun to watch. And what makes it, for me anyway, even more fun is knowing how directly in love they were. I watched, what did I see recently? I saw An Affair to Remember not too long ago with Cary Grant, who, right? Am I thinking of that right?
Yeah.
Hold on. I've got to double check myself here.
You better double check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Right, I got to chickadee check myself. Yes, Cary Grant. And I was in a conversation with a friend of mine about how Cary Grant was so good, he had crackling chemistry with everybody. Bogey and Bacall didn't have that. They were good, but they had it with each other more than anyone else. And that's what grounds so strongly and so convincingly the movies that they're in together. They made some changes to the novel of The Big Sleep when they filmed it. A, to make it more confusing, yay Howard Hawks, and B, so that she wouldn't have, her husband was sort of at the center of everything in the novel, and they took her husband out of the center of everything so that the two of them could have more. Every time the camera's off, we have sex scenes together.
Yeah, a more acceptable, steamy relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't deny it. I mean, Key Largo is the same way. He shows up as a buddy of her dead husband, and just right away, like the moment they look at one another, you get it. I keep coming back to The Big Sleep. It's one of my favorite movies, but there's other examples. Because he's a private eye, he's apparently completely irresistible to every woman who sees him. There's a lot of flirting going on in that movie, and all of it, some of it varying degrees of hotness, but all of it pales in comparison to what happens between him and Bacall, because it's a connection at an intellectual level. They get one another very clearly. They have just some of the best banter you've ever seen. So yeah, while she certainly will be missed, she has left her mark, like you said, on the culture, on the lexicon, on. She has given us a great deal as an artist, and I, for one, am very grateful.
You're here.
I think that rounds it out nicely. Frankly, you may end there. There was another actress who passed away who played Spock's wife in Amok Time, but we can pick that up when we do a full Star Trek episode. Santo, are you watching? All right, so let's go around. Shu, you never put your lower third up, so how are we supposed to know where to find you?
Well, by now you ought to know that it's SCH Universe. How hard is Universe to figure out? That's not that difficult. If the good news, the one here who has the most difficult Twitter handle to remember is you. And you're the one who gripes at everybody else for putting something up. By now they can remember something. Oh, I'm Film Geek Dub. How are people supposed to remember that just by looking at the screen? They're much more interested in looking at your cute mug. So they can look at the screen. Warren Graff, that's easy. Santo, that's easy. El Tremendo, that's easy. Shuniverse, SCH Universe, clever. That's easy. Film. What's Dubs again? Man, I can't remember. It's what's that? What's his name? Oh, it's Film. Yeah, exactly.
I think the most upsetting thing about this whole thing is that I have no defense to that attack. That just cuts me right to my core.
Yeah.
That
You need
makes
a
me,
deeper.
that makes me rethink pretty much everything I've done with my life up until this point.
Up to this point, well, I'm glad to be here for you, babe.
I'm gonna have to get a new Twitter handle. I'm gonna have to get like a new 15 followers. Those Viagra selling bots, they don't follow just anyone. They're a little particular about who they choose to follow.
Very hurtful when they unfollow you. What did I say? What did I say?
Damn it! I said Levitra. I didn't mean it.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up. A joke I always heard that cracked me up is Levitra sounds like the magic Harry Potter uses to get an erection. Okay, Warren, where can we find you now that my soul has been ripped from my heart?
I think at Warren Graff down there at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, that's super clever.
Took me years to figure that Twitter handle out.
You can find me at Film Geek Dub. I implore our 2 followers to please follow me and prove Shu's unrelenting deconstruction of my worthlessness at least somewhat false. Not entirely. I'm not going to take that away from him. After all, he does run the Shuniverse. But
Master of the
I forgot I had taken a picture for our 2 viewers. There's going to be a hilarious joke if you've watched the last 2 weeks of Film Geek Primer live that I will be tweeting out when this is over. Shu, you're going to have to boot up your old Commodore 64 and start getting on Twitter because it's going to be aimed pretty directly at you.
Oh, sweetness.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's going to be a great thing. Let me make sure I've got the picture. Because I saw something and I was like, oh my god, must tweet this to Shu, and then I forgot to do it.
And now you will. Thank you.
Now I will.
I look forward to it. It'll be like a holiday.
I am Aaron. You can tweet me at FilmGeekDub.
You said that already.
Very easy to remember. FILM. G. That's a G. EEK, and then a dub, which looks like a D and then half of a U with a mirror on it. It's easy to remember. It's very easy to remember. Until Friday, when we'll be discussing Dogs of War. Actually, I just realized I hope I can make it. I will see the movie anyway, even if I can't make it, and I will comment via Twitter if you want to see my comments. All right.
Wait, how do we follow you on Twitter?
Thank you, 2 viewers, for joining us. I apologize for the way this has ended. I will see you all next week.